I came at music from a very conscious perspective. Like at the time, I was fresh out of university and I was like, very enthusiastic about social justice just because the world is, there's so much injustice going on. And I was like, I always, as a kid, I was really into the arts, but I was like, I can't justify being an artist. I just need to like be focused on raising money for Indigenous land rights and raising awareness about this stuff and helping my community. And then it was after I had my son, kind of, I call it a sort of not postpartum depression, but postpartum confusion, like a moment where I was like, what am I doing with my life?
You're listening to a little bit of our special guest, Amai Kuda, right here on the Inner Sleeve Music Podcast. Welcome back to a brand new edition of the show. Myself, Cassius Morris, and Joe Pacheco here to host you today. What's going on, Joe?
Not much, man. I'm excited to bring this awesome artist in, Amai Kuda, which was like totally like brand new to me. I'd never heard of this before, but like instantly, as you could tell from the top, instantly like love the music, I just love that vibe. It just puts me in a good space right off the bat.
Another one of those incredible artists that has come across our desk, and we're very happy to be able to discover her work and really delve into it with her. So we have an awesome conversation you guys are not going to want to miss. Hopping into a little bit of news, since the COVID-19 pandemic ended, fans have been rushing out to live events, particularly concerts and music shows at stadiums and arenas. And Ticketmaster, it seems, has been having a bit of a hard time keeping up with this demand.
Yeah, man. I don't know if tickets have been flocking, but they've also been like hitting a wall a lot of times. Just trying to get tickets has been a fiasco, right? With
100%.
Swifties, all the Swifties and all that crazy stuff going for like, $30,000 a ticket, $20,000 a ticket, like unreal.
And that was how this started, right?
Yeah, I think it's been going on for a long time. It's just these are the big ones making the headlines, right? But like now we have this whole Bad Bunny situation in Mexico, right? Where a lot of the actual legit fans who bought real tickets were stuck not being able to go to the show because apparently they oversold tickets, and apparently according to Ticketmaster they were saying they were fake tickets, but according to some other people they're saying that they were sold by Ticketmaster anyway as a way to sort of oversell the show, kind of thing. I'm trying to still wrap my mind around what that means, like how would you sell an extra 5 or 10,000 tickets to an 85,000 seater kind of show and expect to get away with it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, and the whole concept that, the Ticketmaster quote says a quote, unprecedented amount of fake tickets were scanned at the event. So, the idea that Ticketmaster is issuing tickets that are not actually able to be used and there's somebody else in there, singing and dancing in your seat, it is sort of hard to wrap your mind around because, if it's a fake ticket, how does it work? I'm not sure, but, we have a little bit more quotes from Ricardo Sheffield, who is the head of Mexico's Consumer Protection Agency. He says Ticketmaster will be fined up to 10% of their sales for all of last year's fiasco. They also must reimburse affected fans 100% of the ticket prices, plus 20% extra in compensation for the issue. So that was surprising to me, Joe, because, I mean, listen, for Ticketmaster to give a refund at all is a bit of a stretch, but the 20% on top of it, I mean, that's almost unprecedented.
That's plus the 10% fine, which I'm sure is probably nothing compared to what they've made, but I mean, it all adds up, right, at the end of the day. And I think money aside, I think Ticketmaster just wants to stay out of the news in the sense of bad news, because they've been taken to the cleaners here. But like, no sympathy from me, because like I've never been hit these situations where I couldn't get tickets or I was sold a fake ticket or something. But just like, when you're buying a ticket and then you see the prices, whatever, and then when you get your ticket, it's like an extra $30 tacked on for service fees and this and that. And it's like, it's a whole other show I could have probably gone to. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. The service fee for an electronic ticket that they email to you.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man. And like, I'm just complaining about tickets, like that aren't that expensive. But when you put into like the price of some of these shows and these events, and like you were saying before we recorded, where what if you're driving in or flying in from somewhere, and then you get stuck like, well, I have a fake ticket, or even, like, I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know where to go with this kind of thing. It's almost turned me off to shows just because it's like, I'm going to get screwed or I'm going to miss out kind of thing. That's the or I can't afford to go, basically.
That's the thing, and I have noticed that the standard has dropped since the pandemic ended. And that's sort of why I brought it up at the beginning. It seems like ever since these events have been back, people are just so, I think greedy is just the easiest way to put it. They're so greedy. All they're seeing is dollar signs and all that money they want to make back from that 2.5 years that they didn't have it. That they seem to just be treating the animals, treating the fans like animals, treating the animals like fans.
But the thing is like at the same time, like they're still selling.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So you're still voting, like it's like we talk about junk food, right? Why is junk food more affordable than fruits and vegetables? Well, because every time you go to the thing and you're buying the junk, I'm guilty. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
But that's a vote,
Exactly.
So like,
you vote with your wallet.
At the other end, when the person doesn't know your story or that, I wasn't in the mood for an apple today, I'm more in the mood for this, or I had an apple at lunch so now I can have a snack. You're making up stories here. But all they see is ticket sold, money in, ticket sold. Well, the demand is there, right? So
exactly. Yeah, it's true.
And it's funny because like I could say, oh, I'm going to boycott or any of this stuff, but who cares? Someone's just going to take my ticket in 5 seconds before I even blink my eyes. It's gone,
Well, that's the thing. And I'm starting to think maybe this will actually pave the way for some change because like you're saying, like people vote with their wallet, not with their mouth. So if you're going to complain and then still buy it, like Joe's saying, they just see a transaction on the other end. It doesn't come with a side of complaints or a side of, hey, you should change this or that. The only time I think they'll ever change anything is when the bottom line becomes affected. And it looks like Ticketmaster is definitely there. I also heard Live Nation is under investigation, right?
Well, that's it, right? Yeah, and that's why I get them confused. Ticketmaster and Live Nation, they're all sort of like
same difference.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And it's like, and now like there's been a lot of talks because of these two big fiascos, especially the Taylor Swift, about like monopolization, right? And having and what is it? Antitrust, I think it is antitrust laws and stuff. So now, like, wow, you've brought the attention of regulators that can split up your company, which. I don't know at the end of the day if it's going to hurt anybody because like when YouTube was split up from Google for being too big, it made them both bigger separately. Yeah. Right? So it could eventually be a good thing for them. But, any sort of scrutiny from regulators and stuff like that, you sort of want to fly under the radar as much as possible. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, like in the age of computers and stuff and like Metallica sold out in under 8 minutes, I think, like some of those shows, so
insanity.
It's crazy, and we also heard that finally, if you're a Swiftie, Taylor Swift fan, you'll get a second chance to, you're supposed to have gotten an email, right? Like if I flip here, we're supposed to have gotten an email. Some people got it. You were selected for this opportunity because you have been identified as a fan who received a boost during so as I was reading this, I almost like, man, really, I just want to go to a show, buy a ticket, go to a show and go home.
Jumping through hoops here.
Yeah, now it seems like you got to go through all this red tape and bureaucracy, because these guys don't know how to play fair, technically, or do things properly, I don't know. I don't know what you think about like the whole Swiftie thing.
I think the Taylor Swift thing is interesting too, because, it's a testament to how, much longevity she has as an artist. She's managed to keep this level of hysteria going or Swift, hysteria going for so long that, it's incredible to see. But I do have to say, Joe, I think this whole thing is doing more harm than good when it comes to both brands, because it just, again, it highlights how difficult this has become. Like you're saying, it feels like, it's such a challenge to even get into a show or get to a show nowadays. And, ease of use, I think, is a big thing for a company. And that is the main thing they're losing. When I think of Ticketmaster, I get a headache just thinking about them, that's not good.
And I don't know who's selling tickets for Metallica and stuff, but I mean, like, same thing.
I think it's them.
Like a different situation, and I like I was telling you the other day off mic, I was like, I grew up with Metallica. When I liked Metallica, everybody looked at me funny. Why do you like that stuff? It's all just like noise and stuff. And then they became the biggest band in the world. And I sort of they fell off my radar, but like, I'm still proud of them for what they've accomplished. And like the fact that they could pull this off, right? Where it's like different opener every night, two nights per city, never the same playlist, 2 nights in a row or ever. That's amazing. It's amazing. Yet, why decide to force people to buy 2 concerts, 2 nights right off the bat? Awful. And then only the single shows. I don't understand. Maybe it's just went over my head. The single shows only in 2023. So I just like looked on my Facebook feed, like nothing that I've actually gone in and called the person and said, is this true? But like, these are friends saying, oh, some people were complaining they're way too expensive. Some people were showing screenshots of $1,400. And then other people were writing, no, I bought for both shows, I got taxes in $735 Canadian. Still, dude, it's $735 for 2 shows. What if you can't go to the second show?
It's insane.
And
that's for one person too. So it's like, you want to take the family, you're taking out a mortgage here alone,
or like forget about Disney World or family vacation. You're going to see Metallica. Yeah.
Literally. Come on, kids. You're going to love it. Like, seriously, hopefully.
Anyway, let us know what you guys think. Did you have tickets for Swiftie? Were you able to get tickets for Swiftie? Were you at the Bad Bunny show and got stiffed or whatever, or like, what do you think of this crazy concert fiasco? I think is just like, it's almost going to be out of reach for most people,
Let us know in the comments. It's that time again, folks. It is the part of the show where we hop into the audience music suggestions that you guys have sent in on the SoundMojo comms tab. One of my favorite parts of the show every week, Joe, because I don't always love every song, but I always find them interesting and or entertaining. That's one thing I'll have to say.
I ditto, it's always interesting, and it always opens my eyes to like, wow, I thought I knew stuff and I really don't know anything,
That's it, right? Yeah. We're, like we always say, we're supposed to be the music guys, but you guys continue to prove us wrong here. So let's see what the first one is here.
The first one is always our buddy AUR, who, I don't know, man. I think he's waiting all the time. Friday, he waits for Friday. Sometimes I try to trick him. I put it on a Saturday. He still gets there first.
He's here more than us, I think.
I think so, yeah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, yes.
He suggested Maher Zain and Humud. I should read these things before we get for the first time here. Tahaya, which is basically one of the World Cup songs of this year. And
this was cool. The video for this was big. There's a lot of people in the video. They seem to put a lot of locations. I mean, yeah, exactly. If you're doing the World Cup, you're going to do it big. I would like to figure out what they were talking about in this song, but from what I could tell from the vibe of it, it sounded really happy and upbeat, which is something that I like. I find it infectious when there's guys like that performing, smiling real big. They're obviously really having fun. So I found that infectious, but not exactly my favorite type of music.
Yeah, like I listened to this. I love the intro because it started off with like the oud or those types of Middle Eastern instruments, which I love. I love that sound. I think, like you said, the song is nothing wrong with it. It's decent, well produced, like pop song. Nothing we haven't heard before is what I got. Heard that kind of, and to be honest, like I know maybe I'm biased, obviously, but like I remember, was it Shakira Waka Waka for me was a bit, or no, what's that? No, the Kanan, right? Or Kanan, that song, Wave Your Flag. That one I found way catchier.
Right. Oh, I forgot about that song. Jeez.
Yeah, I found that one way catchier, but this one was good. Nothing wrong with this one. And like you said, grandiose video because it's a huge event, right? Worldwide. That's pretty much all I got to really say about this. But I wanted to know, have you watched any games? Have you been following?
I have not, honestly. I've completely, I enjoy the hype of it on social media, but I don't even know what channel to put, to be completely honest. How about you?
I've not watched many games, or full games, because I'm always working. And this is what threw me off. It's usually summer for us, right? So it's like, usually it's like, it's in the middle of the summer, so July, there's the whole month is like all whatever. So this, because it's summer in Qatar, right? Because or else forget it, those players would be dying in real summer over there.
Seriously, right?
But yeah, no. So that kind of the scheduling just throws me off. So it's like I don't have the inclination to like, oh, there's the Portugal game. Oh, there's this game,
But it's kind of like if they change like the Super Bowl or something,
Yeah. But I have been watching here and there. My son has been really into it, which I'm really happy, that he's like really, he knows the names. Oh, what did you think of this guy? And that guy, I'm like, well, I don't know that name, bro. I don't know.
He knows more than me.
Yeah, that's it. He's telling me, oh, no, this team is good. Argentina has a chance. This, that. I'm like, but one thing I will highlight, like I'm Portuguese, so like obviously I went for Portugal and stuff. But I mean, I'm really happy that like a lot of the traditional teams that you expect to see there aren't there. Italy didn't even make it. Germany went out right away. Japan put out Germany. It's like unheard of, right?
Yeah.
I think so. If I remember correctly, that was the team that put them out. So, you have like Croatia, Morocco, you have all these interesting teams, I find, so I find like it's sort of like interesting.
It's a cool mix.
It's been a good World Cup, in my opinion, But anyway, okay. I digress about that. Let's move on to the next one, which is our good friend in Germany. I think it's Germany, right? Like, so sorry that they were kicked out in the World Cup. They're here,
Yeah.
but
We take it
but
back.
yeah, exactly. So he gave us. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna try this again. Memorial Clover Z versus Kiss.
Yes. And guys, this is something that I'd heard about because I mean, you know, I've been a Kiss fan for a long time. They're one of my first bands I ever got into, but I think this was kind of at the point where I fell off the map with Kiss a bit in like 2018, 19. So I'd never seen it. And watching this, it was actually so fun and entertaining. I was like, first of all, these guys are so much about their money that they're working with people we've never even heard of. You know, like these guys are worldwide. You know, they're just on a whole nother level. And I think it was just, you know, it was fitting.
Man, I like when I read his message here saying, please watch the music video for this. It's insanity.
Yeah.
And it is. It's cool. It's fun. It's crazy. I enjoyed the song too, man. I just love these quirky songs. I've been sort of acclimated to that genre of music because my daughter really listens to that kind of stuff. So it's like we hear it in the car. So it's kind of like become normal. But man, like they just like Japanese artists and they just have this amazing ability to take serious music, but still, you know, make it joyful,
make it fun and
playful, right? And just,
yeah.
And one takeaway from this video is I'd love to see how it's done, a behind the scenes kind of thing. I know I can imagine it's green screens and everything, but it just looks so good with their costumes and stuff. I'm like, man, and it almost looks to the point where like it almost feels like I could do this, you know? But yeah right. I don't know.
They
really
make it look easy.
Yeah, this is really good, man. Thanks again, Here. You always
shout out to Here. This was a fun one for sure. I wonder if they went to do the video or if they were in America and did the video like separately. That would be cool to know for sure.
Well, both are really doable, right? Because they're often over there anyway, but it's doable to do it green screen because you never really saw them together, right? I don't think you just saw.
Well, they came close to each other, but there's no saying they were actually in the same room.
That's it. Yeah. No, definitely cool, man. I'm definitely gonna check out more of the what is it, Memorial Clover?
Memorial Clover Z.
So off to the next one. Thank you, Eric, for the amazing once again. Colin Olafson, who suggested Carnival Goliath. Now, man, was I happy to see somebody mention Carnival because I was thinking about it last week. I said, I think I'm going to bring it up on this segment because I like this band, but I like this album, especially and this song, you know? So I'll let you
I was thinking of you when I heard this, Joe, because the second I put it on, I was like, this is the type of stuff that like Joe would definitely be into. And I was like, this is
funny.
Sick.
I played this for you a couple of weeks back when we were having a chat.
Oh, really?
Evan Townsend and some this. This is the actual song I showed you.
Oh, yeah. Did you show me the live version or something?
No, studio version, and they're I think an Australian band. Anyway, no
wonder it sounded familiar because I was like, this is definitely the type of song Joe would send me, and it shows that you did.
Exactly.
So there you go. No, I think this was cool. This was like a proggy type of thing, like a modern prog. I liked it. You know, I think I'm actually warming up a bit more to this sound. The whole prog sound was sort of out of my element. I always came up on like the meat and potatoes, classic rock, AC/DC, Kiss. But I like the stuff that's a little more intricate. And this actually made me want to delve deeper into that world, like the Dream Theaters. And, you know, there's so many different groups, Devin Townsend. I like this a lot.
Man, like I have a paragraph here that I wrote about it because I just love this album. Like I'm not 100% familiar with all of their albums and their stuff, but this album, Inside Out, I know it. I've been listening to it for the last 10 years. It's literally, I would say, you know, because I could say it's my top 10, but it's probably my top 20 albums of all time. It's probably the best sounding prog rock, best sounding recorded mixed album I've ever heard, or one of them. It's really up there. It's so good. The bass tone on this song alone is worth just listening to it. The fact that the drummer, like the time signature on this, I watched the Rick Beato video. He broke down this song and he went as far as saying it's like the time signature is like 24/7, how he cut it up. I want to explain that to you guys because it's crazy.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Yeah, so the one thing I was that I love about this and what you said, like, okay, sure, there's prog in terms of Yes, Rush, and the classics, right? Gentle Giant, those type of proggy bands. Then you have what I consider a little bit more of the heavier stuff, so the Dream Theater and everybody that came after that. But those guys I find are obvious prog in the sense that like you're going to hear a shredding solo, you're going to hear very technical parts, and the songs are technical. Not always, but for the most part. Whereas this, it's like you said, it's more intricate rock or like hard rock, but it's proggy in the sense that you could tell that these guys know what they're doing. They're playing intricate stuff. It's not just 4/4 time signatures. So I find like this will go over easier. So someone who's not into like the whole technical aspect, it's more about the songs and the sound and the vibe, right? And that's what I kind of put these guys in, that, especially this album. It's just like one of the, anyways, I can gush for this all day.
Really good sound though. It was. And we're glad that Colin sent this in. Shout out to Colin Olivson. Okay. Sorry.
Yes, another. I think everybody here is like the regulars that suggest songs. Moving on to another completely different world. Anton Vituslavski Jelson. There, I'm gonna get it. He suggested played alive / the bongo song by Safri Duo.
Oh yes, this was so cool.
Yes, and
I mean,
have you heard of this already?
No, I'd never heard of this. And when I put it on, I was like, these bongos are just relentless, like in a good way. Like it keeps you invested. They keep hammering. I sort of thought it was a cool mix of instruments too. Like the instrumentation was, I figured it would be more so just straightforward percussion, but there seemed to be like underlying elements that made it a little more interesting. So I liked it, man. I thought this was actually well done. Well,
I like when I was listening to this, you could not throw a rock without hitting somebody, or like one of those expressions that I'm
hadn't heard it.
Yeah, because this was all over the place. This was everywhere, and it's like, I think not that it changed the sound of EDM, but it was like it really brought the percussions to the forefront, almost without like a vocal, or something, and it made it sort of like the lead instrument, right? And then halfway through the song, because it's a long song, it's about 8 minutes or so. Halfway through the song, you get that iconic anthemic melody that was heard everywhere in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, I mean, this is where I really understood remixes, because there were so many different versions of the song, but that melody that the song has is so anthemic, like this is one of those, like, you're at a rave or a party, and when this comes on, you're fist pumping in the air, and it's, anyways, I know I would be.
This brought me to a club scene for sure. Like, in the movies, like there's always a specific type of song in a club in the movies. This is exactly where it brought me, because it was like, it's just so like quintessential club.
Yeah. I would think this is like, I ventured here to say this is probably one of the most iconic songs in the genre, like it's funny because as soon as I pressed play, it instantly put me in a good mood, just feel better, so thank you for that, Anton. You put me in a great mood.
I got to check out the Safri Duo. Were they like a one-hit wonder, or did they have like a lot of hits?
I think it's a good question. I think they had a couple, because I remember seeing that name. It was a big name at the time, now maybe they had 2 hits, 3 hits. I don't know, but this is definitely one of them. So, and last but not least, Donald Fagan, who suggested Kenny Burrell, Midnight Blue. So Kenny Burrell,
yes,
I know him as obviously he is a jazz guitar player from the 60s, 70s and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd never heard this song, or maybe I did. It's just too hard to remember for how much music and how much jazz I've been through.
Seriously.
Curious to know your thoughts on this.
You know how I said that the last song brought me to a club type of setting? This instantly transported me mentally to a cocktail party. This was like that cocktail party, like you're in a scene at Spider-Man where like Peter Parker was taking pictures, like one of those nice parties. And this is exactly where it brought me, man. I think it was like this type of music, especially when it's executed at this level, I really can't find any complaints about it. Like, it's just so easy to listen to. Everything sounds good. And I could, I've been actually putting more jazz on lately. I could listen to a lot more of that.
That's it, right? Like for me, when I heard the song come on, I'm like, oh, this makes me think right off the bat. There's just a bit of, I almost thought it was, that song Moon Dance by Van Morrison?
I'm sure if I heard it, yes.
It's a wonderful night for a moon dance. Anyways, it's a big thing. And so it made me think of that right away, and almost even like is very close to it. But yeah, like you were saying, this type of jazz, this type of like vintage jazz at this point, whatever, it just, I swear to God, I put it on the vinyl or wherever, just put it on, and like I feel like there's a fire burning.
Yeah, exactly.
A couch, some good company, and like I'm done. I'm happy, So that's what I love about this sort of. It just brings me back to that. It's like comfort food, right? But comfort music,
That's the best way to put it, actually. Yeah, I would definitely say it's comforting. It sort of puts you in a relaxed vibe, and I think the lack of vocals is also nice for variety too. So I liked it. I liked it a lot. We appreciate you guys for sending in all these suggestions. It was another awesome week here on SoundMojo. For those, make sure to go hit the SoundMojo YouTube page and go to the community tab, where every single Friday we put up a post asking you to send your music, and we may be giving you a shout out and reacting to your song next. Now let's hop into the portion of the show with our special guest, Amai Kuda. We thank her so much for taking the time to join us on this episode. Make sure to go check out the brand new project, Emergency. It's out everywhere you can find music now. The single is called Which Way, and you can find all the info you need on Amai in the description down below. We'll be right back to share our thoughts after the interview. Amai, thank you so much for joining us on the Inner Sleeve.
Thank you for having me.
100%. So talk to us about what's been going on. Of course, you have the brand new single that just came out, the Which Way, which I got to say, like, phenomenal. I'm just going to say it off the bat. Like, I've been listening to this song and I find it super, super addictive. How does it feel having this brand new song coming out?
Oh, it feels good. It's exciting to finally share it. Like, it was actually recorded quite a while ago. And so it's exciting. You know, you held on to a thing for so long and get to put it out and hear people's responses. Very, very exciting and rewarding. So excited to share the video as well with folks.
So what was the reason behind having it for so long? Was it a situation where inspiration just struck and maybe you weren't planning on releasing at that time? Or was it something that you planned strategically to release around this time?
No, it did evolve. The schedule really did evolve. Like, actually, we recorded it in early 2021. And then started, the plan was to have like a gradual rollout of all the songs over the course of 2021. To start with a vinyl, which we released, a sort of vinyl edition of the whole thing, to kind of give that focus on the tangible, like nowadays everyone takes in music through streaming, but to give a little bit of time for that album experience for those who are, old school folks who really want to engage with it that way. So it was kind of released in one format a long time ago, and then wanting to do this gradual rollout of the audio of the online version, accompanied by the visuals. And so that had to be sort of, the timing for that was really impacted by just very real world issues, like finding the animators for the visuals and then the length of time that it took to animate and budget and that kind of thing. So that kind of pushed things back to being released more throughout this year. And so, to me, things don't always go as you plan, but at the same time, like, I'm thankful. Like, in some ways there's always kind of a benefit. Like, it's given a lot of space to everything to have its, a lot of times if you rush the material, put the material out too close together, like, every song doesn't really get its full due. So there's some pros to it as well. That's how it happened.
That's fascinating too, because this is one of the first sort of processes I've heard of in the last couple of years that wasn't affected, it sounds like, by the pandemic. I mean, was that something that was a factor at all, or was that not even involved?
Was it a factor at all? I mean, it was a factor in terms of my life and what was happening at the time, but no, I mean, we managed to kind of go ahead with recording. And in fact, I think in some ways, like some artists have also talked about this, that, the fact that there was not as much, like, there weren't performances happening. Like, I was able to just focus on the recording process more fully in that moment. Recording is the kind of thing, like, we were just meeting in the studio with myself and Jimmy Kiddo, who co-produced most of the tracks, and my son sometimes, who co-produced several of them. And so, it's just three of us, myself and my son, lived together. So that's not an issue. And like, we masked up between, Jimmy and I. Well, by the time you started singing, it's kind of pointless to mask, but
right. But you did what you could.
Yeah, we did what we could. But it's such a, like, I practically lived at the studio for the month that we recorded. So really, it's like you're part of each other's bubble, and it just means it's a kind of good thing to do when, in a lockdown scenario. It's low risk, I would say.
When was the writing for it? When did you end up? Was it during the pandemic, or did you have this already over a few years?
Most of the songs, I would say, were written 2019, 2020. Which Way is actually an older tune. I can't actually remember, but like more than 4 or 5 years old, I would say. Which Way is the oldest song on the album, actually. Because I've been performing it for years, but it's really interesting, kind of shifting. Like, when I would perform it back in the day as myself, my singing and playing guitar, and my then percussionist band member Y Josephine playing cajon, and so it was much more pared down. And so like having the opportunity to produce for it and really like fill the sound out and see where that would take us was really exciting. So it's that song has really evolved over the years.
It's interesting you said fill the sound out, because when I'm listening to it, I feel it's kind of almost the reverse, in the sense of saying that there's so much space and air and peace, and you're not yelling at us. You're not yelling the message at us. It's just, it's so nice, It's interesting.
No, it definitely hits. Like, I think it definitely serves the purpose and it hits the mark that you're going for sonically, and recorded at Quantum Vox Music. For lack of a better way to ask this question, why Quantum Vox? Is there anything that made that place stand out?
Well, I mean, it just from like, I knew Jimmy, I got introduced to him. It's his studio, home-based studio. And I got introduced to him a few years before that, and had recorded my last project there and was really happy with the sound of the previous project. And in fact, the song that we first, reason I first connected to him was because I had done a song called Chow to Ford, which was my little, my contribution to trying to get rid of Rob Ford at the time.
Right. Okay.
So,
because you're from Toronto.
I'm from Toronto. So but it was my contribution to trying to encourage people to vote for a more progressive candidate who would better serve all of us. So we did this song, but it was like, obviously, like, it was kind of in a rush because we were doing it in time for the election, and
right.
it was like looking for people who would want to do it like pro bono. And so that was when I first connected to him.
Interesting.
He was like, had a similar vibe, like on the same page politically, and then just was really happy with the technical aspect of the studio and his engineering. And so we continued to work together.
How would you say you could describe the current scene in Toronto? Like, maybe for somebody who's never been there, who is an artist, how would you describe the scene out there in terms of producers and opportunities?
That is a very good question. Now, I'm no longer based in Toronto, so I may not be the best person to answer that question, but I think there's just a lot, like, people are in scenes, certain people a lot of people don't necessarily know. We all know our own little niche. That's kind of how I observe what's going on. And I think that we would benefit from a little bit more, like, I don't know, maybe it exists and I don't know about it, but like a website where just like all the, all the local producers, all the local studios would be listed, all the local bases. Because like, looking for musicians, looking for people to work with, it's not always easy. And it's kind of like, I usually go by word of mouth or like occasionally a post on social media. And so you end up getting connected with people, people who through other people, which is great. Like, that's an old school way of doing things. And I think that's nothing wrong with that. But I think we could definitely benefit from a little bit more networking, like broad spectrum networking, because there's a lot of great stuff great artists that we don't know about, so things to put on the list of things to do for somebody.
I mean, it's not just Justin Bieber and The Weeknd, right? I mean, there's so many, thousands, potentially even millions of names, in the pool to draw from. So yeah, I mean, it'd be incredible to have a place where that could all be sort of contained. So what exactly led you to leave Toronto, and at what point did you actually leave Toronto?
I left Toronto June last year, and that was to move out to the site of the Sankofa Maroon Village project that I founded and direct. And so the Sankofa Maroon Village project is it's my other job. My other work is doing work, community organizing, I call it, or community education. So I've been for many, many years doing programming for people of African descent that's geared towards reclaiming or supporting our people to reclaim cultural knowledge, specifically and especially focused on, just knowledge of our spiritual traditions that have really been stigmatized through colonization. So we do like a drumming workshop, but then also talk about like what's the spiritual meaning behind certain drum rhythms, or a dance workshop, and same idea. And so we did that for many years, and then kind of shifted the work to like, decolonizing, realizing that that's or focusing on the fact that in order to do that, like, connection to land is also really important, and that African people are also indigenous peoples of the world, not to this territory, but indigenous to Africa. And so our traditions are also intimately tied to connection to nature. So like, you'll hear that in the songs like Oshun, with the water spirit, water deity, like but we, just kind of reclaiming and bringing attention to those traditions that tie us to nature. So that project I worked on, first in Toronto, then connected to land at another site called the Adinkra Farm, where I started a garden there, where I would teach their camp groups, teach them cultural knowledge, but in the context of gardening. So it's like you're growing food and harvesting food, but we're talking about like the earth spirits and like the deity of the earth from the Akan tradition or the Yoruba tradition. And, obviously there's a lot that I still have left to learn, but kind of sharing what knowledge I have. And over the years, we'd always also bring in experts, different people who are experts from different traditions. And then, I needed my own home. I kind of lost my home due to some specific issues that happened last year, some renovations. And so I needed somewhere to live. And I was like, if I'm going to get a new place for myself to live, I want to get a space that will also serve as a home for this project. So I got the land last year in June. It was a long process to get it.
Yeah.
And we're building up the project here. Yeah. So we're just finished up our first year here, and we're, doing workshops, doing retreats for people, growing our membership and so on. We want to also do some work around, as we build first our kind of core community, and then also do work around partnering and allying with local Indigenous people is one of our goals as well. Because obviously decolonization work can't happen without that recognition of this being someone else's land too. And so lots of work to do, but we're making strides.
Oh papa échoue, échoue, échoue. Oh papa échoue, échoue, échoue. Papa échoue, échoue, échoue. Oh papa échoue, ça m'a battu good. Oh papa.
I'm wondering, why is it so important to you to raise awareness about this, not only through your community work, but in your music as well? I mean, I think it's an admirable thing, especially in a space where so many songs are written, for lack of a better term, more or less about nothing. I mean, is that something that is very much conscious in your mind, to be having a purpose to what you're doing?
Yes and no. Like it's funny. Like I came at music from a very conscious perspective. Like at the time I was fresh out of university, and I was like, very enthusiastic about social justice, just because the world is, there's so much injustice going on. And I was like, I always, as a kid, I was really into the arts, but I was like, I can't justify being an artist. I just need to be focused on raising money for Indigenous land rights and raising awareness about this stuff and helping my community. And then it was after I had my son, kind of, I call it a sort of not postpartum depression, but postpartum confusion, like a moment where I was like, what am I doing with my life?
Right. So some reexamination.
Examination. And I had a strong spiritual practice from that time. And through that practice, I mean, to be very honest, a tree told me that I should sing. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll become really rich and famous through singing, and that'll allow me to put money into these projects. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. But then, obviously 13 years later, I'm not rich and famous, but I have kind of reconnected to that deeper aspect of the arts and music, which is that it is a way of transforming people almost through magic, right? Where you don't know, it's not like people are listening or coming to a show because I want to learn about the social justice issue. They're coming to enjoy it. And then through that, you have a platform, you have a way to share something, not necessarily through even an obvious message, but through the energy. I think that's it's kind of a way that I kind of shifted back into an understanding of that power of the things that are immeasurable and unseen. And so that's how I came into it, sort of being a little bit more literal, and then coming into the subconscious power of it. And so, and most of my songwriting is like that. It's at this point, besides songs where it's the Chow to Forward thing, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to set out to write a tune that's for this purpose. Most of them, or the one that I did with Dead Prez, which was okay, I'm writing a song to promote this social justice movement around divesting from banks, and that was a specific purpose. But other than that, most of it, it's my process is very much a spiritual one, and I think for me the songs are gifts from ancestors and gifts from the earth, and so they just come, and then sometimes I only realize the message or the deeper meaning afterwards. A song on my last album, it's not, I didn't set out to write a song about decolonizing, but I realized that after I had sort of sung out this story. Yeah.
No,
That's
100%.
incredible.
So I hope that answered the question.
Oh, no, it certainly does.
I was just wondering, when do you find time to sleep and rest? With everything going on.
I do sleep. I do sleep. I need my 8 hours, man. I really do.
Wow, that's impressive that you managed to get it.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I would sacrifice it more if I could, but like it really affects like my voice and everything. Like I cannot function without that. Like I can do it a couple of days and then it really, past my 20s is like, no, we're not, the body's just like, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. You need to take care of me a little bit.
Already the songs are like a journey. They take you on a journey, but like when you see the visuals as well, it's a whole different style, like all this, like at first glance you think it's sort of anime-ish, like that. Even though I grew up on that stuff as a kid, it was just cartoons, right? It was just animation. So like you're bringing awareness as well with the animation as well. So let us talk to us about that.
It came out of wanting to tell a story. Like I think music conveys a lot, but if in order to sort of really give more of the specifics and a little bit a fuller understanding of the story that I wanted to share, which was both my story and also how my story is part of a larger universal story, right? So I'm a person of African descent who has been on this journey to recover and reclaim my own traditions. And so it's like, I'm in a process of decolonizing myself and supporting the decolonization of my community. And that really is like an adventure. Like I swear to you, there's a lot of things that happen in that, a lot of exciting things that have happened and do happen. And that is part of this larger world movement where millions of people are working to do that in their different ways, to sort of free ourselves in a deeper level from what, the kind of the disruption that was caused by and is caused by colonization. And so I really wanted to tell that story in a way that people would fully grasp it. And so the visuals became a key element. And, I was like, okay, well, I definitely don't have money to or resources to pull together a team and get all the actors. And especially during the pandemic, there's no way to sort of tell that story with real people in the way that I wanted to, especially spiritual stuff, right? Like you really have to have some good effects to tell it with real people. And so I thought, animation is a good option. And then I also was inspired by, I'm a fan of Avatar, The Last Airbender. My son and I watched it. And, and it's a great story. It's a very decolonial story. Although I do I have, a critique of the fact that it doesn't have any Black people. There's no dark skinned people. There's no folks with African curly hair. Even though it's other than that, it's very diverse. And so, I wanted to also address that gap in animation that I think it's happening more and more. There are more Black animated series, but I think there's a need for more, and especially a need to address some of these deeper issues around colonization and around the ways that the legacy of colonization still continues today, where the majority of our peoples, we don't know about or practice any of our traditional practices or traditional spiritual practices. And in fact, many of us are very afraid of them or have really negative ideas around them, and the broader society does as well. So I think it's a huge issue. It's a way that the colonization kind of continues now in a more psychological way. And so it's my effort to counter that and to encourage something. It's not to convert anybody, but to let people, I think we have a right to know about our own histories, our own beliefs, and our own cultures. And then from there, people can decide what they can have make an informed decision about, how they want to connect or not connect.
No, 100%. I mean, you raise a lot of great points there too. Even something as simple as anime, a vastly diverse fan base as well. So, I mean, why not represent more people, especially when they're tuned in already? I think it makes perfect sense. In terms of being more in touch with your roots in these traditions and these spiritual things, was this something that people around you instilled in you growing up, or was this something that you had to go out and find yourself and sort of become awake to?
Kind of a combination, I would say. So my mom did, my mom is the person, my dad is British, my mom is Afro-Tobagonian from Trinidad and Tobago. And she definitely did raise us with a sense of just awareness that we had, that ancestors and veneration of ancestors were part of our traditions, although she recognized that she didn't have the traditional means of doing that anymore. She kind of created this little ceremony where we just acknowledge that, ideally once a month. She had us meditating. So she was kind of the person that made space for a spiritual life. But then at the same time, I had my own parallel process that was going on where I just connect to nature and spirits in nature very like naturally. That's what I gravitated towards as a child. I could feel that like, oh, there's like people inside that tree. And so when I say people, like beings that are just as aware and communicative as we are. So that like I was having my own experience, and it was much later that I understood the connection between those things, that in fact our traditions as African people, and all world traditions really are traditions of are nature-based. All indigenous traditions are like very much nature-based. Like all from every corner of the world, people have had traditions where they understand or recognize or just acknowledge that that like the water is like a someone, is not just a thing.
It's more of a being than just an inanimate stream. Exactly.
But I really made that connection like at a later point, and understood that, that this was also part of an African or African ways of doing things, was to also connect to land, and that in fact land and ancestral spirits or ancestors are kind of inseparable in that way, that like we all return to nature when we die in one way, shape, or form. And so that's the ways that a lot of our like the same way that indigenous folks here have fought battles to protect like sacred sites where their ancestors are buried, and like that site is the place where they a place of connection, a place of veneration. In the same way that has happened on the continent in Africa as well, where people have fought for certain groves of trees because that's where they're connecting to their ancestors. And I didn't know that at first. Like we don't get taught that here. We don't understand those things. We don't know what it is. Like what do African traditions contain? And I came to that later. But I kind of was pursuing it on my own, very privately, like just by connecting to trees for a long time, and then encountered that connection both in the experience, and then kind of found that external knowledge to affirm it.
No,
I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. It was like, I've read books, I've looked into the Tao, Buddhism, and all this stuff over the years, just to understand and like sort of open my mind to many other things. What would you recommend? Is there something like that you can recommend some people read, or a specific author? Or is just more a student of life,
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I recommend to everybody is like connecting to nature, because I think that's where like the beauty of the world's indigenous traditions is that we didn't like, although there are and were priests and spirit mediums, like that's part of what I do as a Sankofa. I am like, that's my job as well, to take care of and represent spirits. But like the beauty is that it's accessible. Like we are all made up of, as they say, made up of stardust, and we are all, there's iron in all of our blood, and like we honor like Ogun, the spirit of iron, in many African traditions, especially West African. We are all made up of water, 70% water, right? So it's like we are part of nature. We are animals, and so just to like give more time. I think we all need to give more time. Like this life has really separated us from that sense, and taken us out of bounds through forgetting that. And I think so much spiritual connection can be achieved just through spending more time and with space and silence. And then from that silence comes sound that we can find in ourselves. But then, yes, absolutely. There's other reading. I'm trying to think of, Malidoma Somé is a great person, in terms of a great writer, in terms of someone who speaks to that, like, indigenous connection between an African group, the Dagara, and the speaking to the connection to nature and ancestry, and the way that those things interconnect. And he's pretty well known as a writer, and a lot of folks of African descent who are interested in learning more about at least one of our traditions have read his stuff. I could put a note in the messages after with his name, Malidoma Somé. But there's lots of books. I think they should be more well known. But yeah, I think the one universal thing, like, it's like we all come from different traditions, so there's not one book that would be relevant to everybody. But what is relevant to everybody is, we all breathe air from trees, and that means something. That's we are intimately connected to them. They're part of us.
There's also so much that, like, you see, like within us, like our lungs almost look like trees as well in terms of the internals.
I've seen those photos.
Yeah, so many parallel, like, or things that, like, in space, the galaxies, the spinning galaxies, they're also within us in terms of how things are done, So it's like, anyway, we see we're lucky enough to have the 4 seasons here, so you see the trees born, breathing, and then like everything falls and goes back into the earth to just be brought up again. So it's kind of like we lost that magic, that innocence, right? Somewhere along the way, whereas like a child, like when they see a tree for the first time, it's like, wow, like, so anyway, yeah, it's just, I just wanted to congratulate you for doing such a good job of like, getting that message out to people and to, because like, we're all so inundated with noise and advertisements and even just like music, like I was saying before, just yelling at you all the time. Here's my message, like listen to me kind of thing. Whereas yours came across so like naturally, organically, and anyways, I'll stop there.
No, thank you. And thank you. That means a lot. I really, obviously you guys know music. So whenever I get that kind of feedback from people who really know music, it's really affirming. And yeah, I think that all comes from like, that's why I call my work under the name of Amai Kuda et Les Bois. It's not just me. It's about all those, it's about, and the woods, et Les Bois, the unseen entities that are part of it, as well as that acknowledges that there's other people who also partake, like my son and Jimmy Kiddo. And but just that I think we are all on a, like we've been really pushed in the superficial direction, right? So then people are more focused on like the obvious and literal, like I was when I was younger, like, oh, I have to get my message out there that way. But I think so much is happening, there's so much power in the unseen, and what's happening in our subconscious is like, in many ways it affects our behaviors more than what we are thinking consciously.
Nuance is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, it's also about like the fact that like you're not like trying to, you are the message, you're being the message instead of trying to, get people's attention is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Amai Kuda et Les Bois, the project is Emergency. It's going to be out on November 25th. Anything you want to tell people about the record?
Yeah, just that it's, the title speaks to both the urgency of the need to kind of come out. And I'm queer, but I don't mean coming out in terms of in terms of sexuality. I mean, coming out in terms of like our spiritualities and who we are, because we've been driven, like these practices have been driven underground for so long. And I think it's not just about, that's a specific thing to my community and to many colonized communities, but it also speaks to a universal thing where a lot of us end up hiding that which is more authentic to ourselves, right? Or who we really are. And so it's that universal journey to emerge and really be authentic and share what is authentic in ourselves. So that's what the album is about. And so it's like both very personal and I think sort of political and universal at the same time. And I hope that people can find some healing in it as well, that by sharing my own healing that I can give somebody healing as well and joy. I hope people enjoy it.
We want to give a huge shout out to Amai Kuda for joining us on this episode of the show. Joe, I have to say, after watching this interview back, it really strikes me how Amai is so passionate about music, not only simply for making songs or sort of for ulterior motives that many people are, but she's also very interested in using her songs for teachings. She does a lot of community work, as we talked about. She has her Sankofa Maroon Village, which is, of course, an outreach program that she has created. So, I mean, her hand is in many different aspects of this business and beyond.
I think it's all encompassing, right? Like she's just like a super person, basically, like in touch with nature, in touch with music, in touch with spirituality. And I think you can't separate one from the other, right? So she's going to do something that's all encompassing. And I really enjoyed the animation and the storylines behind the songs like Oshun and stuff. Definitely, it's so soft spoken, very calm, kind person, seems like, who's had her struggles, as we've heard in the interview, and just keeps going on and like, in a very like respectful way. I think, like she's not like super aggressive, even though she did want to get Paul Ford not elected there a couple of years back, but she does do protests and stuff, which is her right and everybody's right. But anyway, the thing I could say about the music is that, like I was saying earlier, right off the top of the show, is that as soon as I hear this kind of beat and her sweet voice, almost Motown-esque kind of voice, it just makes me feel good. It's like that jazz from, Kenny Burrell we heard before. It just makes me feel good, like it just puts you in a good spot,
100%. I couldn't have said it better. And we encourage everybody to go check out Emergency. The new project is out now, Amai Kuda et Les Bois, So go check it out down in the description below. We thank you guys for tuning into this brand new episode of the Inner Sleeve Music Podcast. We're here every single Friday on SoundMojo. Make sure to go hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can find your podcast, and we will make sure to get in touch with you. Leave us a comment. We'll respond. Drop a listener suggestion. We'll give you a shout out. We'll listen. We love to be interactive here at SoundMojo, and we can't wait to hear more from you guys as a community. I think I got everything, Joe. Is there anything else we should mention?
No, I think you're good, man. I think we have some merch, right? We haven't mentioned the merch in a while. We have
It's
your
true.
usual hoodies, caps, shirts, sweaters, whatever you want. Links down below in the description, as always. Definitely check out like the artists. Like we definitely we don't always get like the big A-list stars. So the stars that we do, the artists that we do get, I think and we think are worthy of a listen, worthy of further inspection, as I would say. Go down that rabbit hole.
Exactly. Thank you guys so much for joining us in the rabbit hole. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys next week.